One day, the argument you cannot stop replaying in your mind will mean nothing. One day, the job that is slowly hollowing you out will be a distant memory. One day, the version of you that is exhausted and overwhelmed will cease to exist. The only question the Stoics ever truly asked was this: what will you do with the time that remains before that day arrives? We often live as though we are rehearsing for the real performance, deferring our presence for some grander future chapter. But the Stoics knew a mind that perpetually defers is a mind already half departed from life. Marcus Aurelius wrote that time is a river of vanishing moments, and no man steps into the same current twice. So let us try just for a moment to arrive in this one. Wherever you are, bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air enter, cool and clean, and feel it leave, warm and complete. This breath is not a rehearsal for the next one. It is its own small, perfect event. Notice the feeling of your body in this space, the quiet hum of the room, the light falling on a surface. This is the current. You are in it now. There is a suffering that comes not from loss, but from the anticipation of loss. The slow grief of knowing that everything you love exists inside a frame with edges you cannot see. You feel its presence on certain quiet evenings when something in your chest tightens without warning. That tightening is not weakness. The Stoics would call it the beginning of philosophy. The moment a person stops sleepwalking and starts genuinely seeing. Epictetus, who was born into slavery, understood impermanence not as an abstraction, but as the texture of his daily existence. He taught that we suffer most from our insistence that what is temporary should be permanent. He had no home he could call his own, no body free from the will of another, and yet he arrived at a tranquility that wealthy senators traveled to witness. His secret was simple. He had made peace with endings before they arrived. The Stoics were not pessimists. This is a persistent misunderstanding. When Marcus Aurelius wrote Memento Mori, remember that you will die, he was not indulging in morbidity. He was performing a precise cognitive act, a deliberate recalibration of attention. To remember that something will end is to finally begin paying it the quality of attention it deserves. The sculptor does not rush the marble because he knows the chisel will eventually rest. This recalibration was a daily practice. They would journal, not to record events, but to untangle their judgments about them. They practiced the view from above, imagining their own lives and worries from a cosmic perspective, shrinking their anxieties down to their true size. And they practiced negative visualization, imagining the loss of what they held dear, not to create fear, but to cultivate a profound appreciation for what they had, right now. These were not intellectual games. They were tools for living well within the bounds of a finite life. Think of a relationship you have taken for granted, assuming there will always be more time, more mornings, more conversations. The Stoic practice is not to manufacture sadness about this. It is to allow the knowledge of finitude to do what it was always designed to do, to flood the ordinary moment with an intensity that nothing else can provide. Urgency and tenderness are the same word in the right language. In the morning, the day feels infinite, a vast landscape of hours. By midday, we are caught in the current, swept along by tasks and obligations. The morning's promise already a memory. In the evening, we look back and see how quickly the landscape was crossed. Each day is a miniature life with its own birth, its own frantic middle, and its own quiet end. To see this pattern is to understand the shape of our larger existence. Seneca, who lived a life of extraordinary complexity, spent his final years writing letters to a young friend with a ferocity that feels almost desperate. He knew his remaining time was genuinely limited, and so every letter burns with the same underlying message. Stop postponing your life. The tragedy is not death. The tragedy is arriving at death having never fully inhabited the years preceding it. There is a concept in Stoic philosophy called Amor Fati, love of fate. It is not passive resignation. To love your fate is to recognize that every condition of your existence, including its eventual cessation, is the material from which a meaningful life is constructed. It is the artist's love for the stone, flaws, and all. The waves do not apologize for receding. Their beauty and their ending are the same continuous fact. Psychologists who study post-traumatic growth describe a consistent cognitive shift. At some point in the process of grief or illness, the person stops asking why this is happening and begins asking what this demands of them. This is the Stoic move, made instinctively, in the darkness. The pivot from victim of circumstance to author of response. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire while privately battling illness, crisis, and loss. He never claimed this was easy. What he claimed over and over was that the obstacle and the path forward are made of the same substance. Difficulty does not interrupt your life. It is, in the deepest structural sense, the content of your life. And like all content, it too will one day conclude. The paradox of accepting impermanence is that it does not induce paralysis. It dissolves it. The people who live most fully are not those who believe they have unlimited time. They are the ones who have genuinely absorbed the knowledge that they do not, and have chosen to act with commitment rather than hesitation. The finish line does not diminish the race. It is what makes the race worth running. When you genuinely absorb the impermanence of something, your entire relationship to it transforms. You do not need to manufacture gratitude or force yourself to be present. The awareness itself does the work. This is why near-death experiences so reliably produce the same report. That ordinary things suddenly appeared extraordinary. Impermanence is not the enemy of beauty. It is its primary source. Studies of life review find that regret clusters not around painful events, but around beautiful things that were present and unacknowledged. People grieve the conversations they were too distracted to inhabit, the mornings they spent worrying about afternoons. The Stoic insight is that this form of regret is entirely preventable. Its prevention requires only the willingness to look directly at the clock. You are standing right now inside one of the days that will one day be over. The version of your life that exists at this precise moment, with its specific people, worries, and light, is not rehearsal. It is not the waiting room. This is the life. Not the life you will eventually arrive at after the next achievement. This particular and irreplaceable configuration of your existence is already the thing you are going to miss. The Stoic path does not ask you to be unaffected by endings. Marcus Aurelius wept. Seneca grieved. The philosophy was never about the elimination of feeling. It was about the refusal to allow feeling to become the final word. The commitment to moving, even inside grief, toward clarity. To know that this will end and to love it anyway, with full and open eyes, is not resignation. It is the most radical form of courage available to a human being. So what does this courage look like today? It is not a grand, heroic gesture. It is the small, compassionate act. It is choosing to listen fully when your attention is pulled elsewhere. It is the decision to offer a kind word when silence is easier. It is the commitment to your own well-being, not for some future benefit, but as an act of respect for the life you have right now. This is how we honor our time, not by fearing its end, but by filling its container with purpose. One day, this exact moment will belong to the past, unreachable, irreversible. The Stoics did not ask us to mourn that fact. They asked us to let it illuminate every ordinary second that precedes it. The way the knowledge of sunset makes the afternoon light matter. You do not need more time. You need to fully enter the time you have already been given. That entering, full, present, and clear-eyed, is not something that happens after you have resolved your fear of endings. It is what resolves it.